Hi, welcome to section 2. We're going to get a little farther in depth with blood vessels today. We went over that a little bit with section 1, but specifically we're going to talk about that transition from arteries to capillaries to veins. By the way, fun fact, did you know that if you laid out all of your blood vessels in your entire body, it would cover about 60,000 miles? The circumference of the Earth, so if you drive around the equator, which you can't do, if you went around the equator, that's about 24,000 miles. So you would go around the Earth more than 2 times with all the blood vessels in your body. That's wild, okay? All right, so this kind of a diagram is usually used to show that transition from arteries to capillaries to veins. And the reason is because capillaries are very tiny, but the capillaries are also where the exchange of material takes place, okay? But let's start with the arteries. Arteries, by definition, carry blood away from the heart. Every single artery, including the pulmonary artery, carries blood away from the heart, okay? Most of the arteries carry oxygenated blood, and so you'll see that they're colored red. But the exception is that pulmonary artery. It still carries blood away from the heart, but it's actually carrying deoxygenated blood. So if you look back at that heart drawing or that heart diagram in your book, the pulmonary artery will actually be blue because it is deoxygenated, okay? Capillaries. So let me get my pen. There we go, yellow. So from the heart, the blood is traveling down these arteries. These arteries are branching into smaller and smaller until they get to these capillaries. These capillaries are tiny. Some of them are only big enough for one blood cell at a time to go through, okay? When you cut yourself, just like a little cut, a little paper cut, all you've done is cut into the capillaries, okay? It's very easy to stop the blood there because it's very small. If an injury takes place to either an artery or a vein, that could be much more dangerous. If you were here, I'd tell you about the story of the time I took care of the dude that got stabbed in the arm, and when I looked at it, the blood spurt and hit me, and it was hot, but you're not here, so I can't tell you that. When we get back to school, I'll tell you. Anyway, capillaries. At the cellular level, it's where the oxygen's dropped off, carbon dioxide's picked up, it's where glucose is dropped off, other waste materials are picked up, and then the transport continues, okay? To bring that blood then back to the heart and the lungs, we cross back into veins, okay? Start with smaller ones, into bigger ones, and then into large ones that take you to the heart, up finally until the biggest vein, which is the vena cava, and that system of blood flow continues, okay? Similar to arteries, by definition, a vein carries blood to the heart, including the pulmonary vein. Most veins carry deoxygenated blood, and that is symbolized with the color blue. By the way, your blood is not blue in your body. It looks like that through your skin, just kind of a trick of the light, but all blood is actually red in your body, including deoxygenated blood, okay? So don't believe that if you read that somewhere. Anyway, most veins carry deoxygenated blood except for that pulmonary vein. It's bringing that oxygenated blood back to the heart. It's still carrying blood to the heart, so it's called a vein, but it's colored red because it is oxygenated, okay? Some other differences between arteries and veins. One, and here's, excuse me, this red one, this is the artery, okay? And this blue one, that's the vein. Arteries are much thicker. And the reason for that is because they're carrying a lot more pressure. You think of the heart pumping, it sends that blood into the arteries. Those arteries need to be thick to withstand that pressure, okay? So they just have a thicker wall. You can feel your pulse. If you take your 4 fingers and just lay it kind of across your neck like this, very gently, you don't want to push too hard, you can feel your pulse. You can also feel your pulse pretty easily in your wrist. That you're feeling an artery, okay? And that it's the pulse, it's the pressure of your heart beating the blood through those arteries that you can feel. Veins are much thinner. They don't have as much pressure at all to withstand, so they're much thinner, but then veins have the trouble of, because they're so far away from that initial pump of the heart, they need some help to get the blood all the way back to the heart. And you can see this little guy right here, veins actually include valves, just like the heart does. And you can think of it as a one-way gate, okay? So the blood's going to push through the valve in the vein, and then that closes. And so that prevents any of the blood from coming back in this direction, okay? It can only go through in that direction, and then it's almost like a stop valve. There's also several layers of smooth muscle in both the arteries and the veins, but the veins kind of help squeeze to get that blood going, similar to peristalsis in the digestive system. And then finally, just the fact that your blood vessels and your veins in particular are surrounded by your skeletal muscle. When you move around, you're actually helping to squeeze those veins and get the blood back to your heart. That's part of why people get really cold when they don't move around very much. It's part of why older people's circulation isn't as good, because they just are a little more sedentary, okay? A couple more random pieces of information here. Coronary arteries, they're arteries, so they're carrying blood away from the heart, right? But they're actually arteries that feed the heart itself, okay? So you can look at our little heart muscle right here. You can see some blood vessels. These branch directly off of the aorta, so they're carrying oxygenated blood, and they feed that heart muscle itself. Now, if one of these little coronary arteries gets blocked right here, that's kind of the definition of a heart attack. If there's a blockage or a blood clot or cholesterol buildup, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. That means that this part of the heart's not going to get the oxygen it needs, and it could damage the muscle tissue. And that's, like I said, that's a heart attack. Okay, we'll talk about that more at a later section. Blood pressure. This is just a measurement of the force of the squeeze of the ventricle, okay? Now, you've probably all gone to the doctor before and had your blood pressure taken. That cuff that they put on your arm is called a sphygmomanometer. It's a super fun word to say. You should practice it. And you've probably noticed, I don't know if you've paid attention or not, but you actually always get two numbers when you get your blood pressure. Your normal blood pressure is right around 120/80 for adults and for most teens. And that's measuring two different things, okay? The top number, the diastolic number, is a measure of the pressure of the squeeze of that ventricle, okay? That's why it's a higher number. The lower number, the bottom number, is called the diastolic pressure, and that is actually the pressure of the blood while the heart is relaxed. So there's still some pressure in there because it's full, but it's not a measurement of the squeeze of the pressure. That's the top number, okay? So, again, just some additional information there. I think that's it for this section. Oh, I have an activity for you. Of course I do. I want you guys to do this pulse activity. Take your resting pulse, okay? So again, find your pulse, count it for a minute, or you can count it for 30 seconds and multiply it by 2. But make sure you've been sitting for a while. Make sure you're nice and slow. That's going to give you your resting heart rates, okay? Then I want you to get up and jog in place, or do some jumping jacks, or just run around the backyard a little bit, go ride your bike, something to really increase your activity for a while, and then take your pulse again, okay? Then that's your active heart rate, okay? Do this with your family. Force them to get up and get active. See what everybody's resting heart rate is as a comparison. Different age people have different resting heart rates. Super athletic people have really low resting heart rates. My older son, Zach, is a distance runner. When he had to have a medical procedure done, he had to have anesthesia done and he was put to sleep, they thought he was having a problem with the medicine because his heart rate was so low. But because he's a distance runner, his resting heart rate seems abnormally low. But it's just because his heart is so fit, it works so efficiently, it doesn't have to pump as often as other people's, okay? So do that activity, compare your heart rates, do some exercise, see what the difference is. People that are in good shape, there's not going to be as much of a difference. Those that are out of shape, there's going to be a really big difference, okay? Have fun with that, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.